Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. First thing you guys gotta do, make sure you like and subscribe if you guys like the content. So, where we last left off my car is I was having major issues with the whole coupler. So, I think I've fixed it. So, what I did is I just went to Home Depot and picked up a huge coupler that's kind of meant for like plumbing. But this thing is very thick, so hopefully it holds up. It cost about like $8, so hopefully it works, and it's a lot more sturdy than my previous setup. As you saw in my previous video, how this thing shot as soon as I started revving it up. So of course I don't want that. So hopefully this thing holds, but since putting this in, I have done another watt pull. What I had noticed was I was getting a major drop in fuel pressure, meaning my fuel pumps are they're not keeping up with the amount of boost that I'm pushing. So in order to help me out with that whole issue with the whole fuel pressure issue, I have bought a Kenne Bell booster pump, which this is a 21 volt 40 amp booster pump. So I'm gonna be installing this sucker, which from what I've seen is not that bad. First off, I'm going to be installing this with a Hobb switch that I did get from NAPA, which is set to open up at 4 pounds in boost. Now, for those who are asking, what the heck is a Hobb switch? Well, for what most people tend to do is that they tend to run these at 100% running all the time, meaning you are getting a lot more fuel pressure, which also means you're going to be burning a little bit more gas. So, of course, I don't want that. So, the purpose of a Hobb switch is you can set it at a designated PSI, and once you hit that PSI, it turns on, then activates the booster pump. So that's what I'm gonna be doing, is I'm gonna be activating this at 4 pounds of boost, meaning when I'm cruising, this booster pump will not be activated. So I'll be chilling. So the moment I start getting on it, the Hobb switch will kick in once I pass 4 pounds, activating this. Of course, the first thing you gotta do when dealing with the whole electrical system, always disconnect the battery, and that's going to really help you from not getting electrocuted, especially since I've been electrocuted from the 12 volt battery, which isn't that bad, but still you don't really want to do it and fry a system or cause any harm, which will really suck. So of course, disconnect that. So the first step when wanting to install the booster pump, first you got to access the wire that you're going to be splicing into. So of course we're going to have to go into the cabin. You're going to want to remove your rear bottom seats, which as you guys can see, obviously I have them already removed, but there's a button on each bottom that holds it in right there, and right here you kind of just stick your hand in and you push. There's no lifting up, all you do is literally push and it pops up on its own. So if you want to do that, or of course weight reduction, which also gives you the easy access to remove your rear seats right here, boom, bolts out. I've done it a few times. So the wire that you're going to want to splice into is the purple with the green stripe, which is right here, this one. So you don't want to splice into this wire right here. You don't need your booster pump. And here goes the 2 positives, which these are what you're going to be splicing into here. So this is going to be acting like kind of like a 3-way. Instead of this feeding directly into here, you're going to cut this, and one wire is going to feed into here, and the other one's going to be returning current into the control module. So the wire with the fuse, which is of course this one, here goes the big old fuse, which is like a 40. So this right here itself hooks up into the harness that's kind of going towards the engine. So the entrance, okay, so think of it like a river, technically this is heading downstream. So this right here, oh sorry, so this wire right here is going to connect to this side over here, while the other wire that does not have the fuse itself is going to be the wire that runs back into the control module. So give you an idea, of course the fuse runs this way, and then the non-fuse runs back into the plug itself. So plain and simple, you just cut into it. I'm gonna be soldering it, and then here goes obviously a ground, which you're gonna want. So the most important wire that I'm gonna be needing is this very long wire, which is gonna be hooking up to my Hobb switch, which I'm gonna have to run all the way to the front, and I'll be showing you the device that I'm gonna be using. But for this wire, I'm just gonna be feeding it all the way through, going into this little hole that is used for the for my sound tube, which I have plugged up but I've already opened. And well, of course I have my sound tube deleted, so I have an open hole leading straight through my firewall into my engine bay. So all I gotta do is just tuck this and make it look nice and clean. So yeah, overall it's not too complicated. When you buy the kit itself, it usually comes with like a voltage control module, which is another wire, which I've already cut, and then I spun around, which I've already cut and wrapped around each other and already closed off. The purpose of this is because I'm gonna want this running at 100%, meaning I have a lot more fuel pressure altogether. So there's no point in adding it for those who want to have the ability to control the output of this pump itself. You can do it and leave it. If not, if you're just gonna leave it at 100%, no point in having that big blocky thing. I just cut it, wrapped it, and closed it off. So that's what I did. So let me just splice into this purple with the green stripe. And again, fuse goes this way, and then the non-fuse goes back into the control module itself. So let's go and do it. Okay, so now that I have like all the copper exposed on both ends of this, and now I have these sides now opened up. Boom. Okay, now it's just time to solder it. You're gonna need, of course, the soldering iron, the material you're gonna be soldering with, and then the like wax thing, I don't even know what it's called. Oh, the paste, soldering paste, and either some heat shrink is right here or some electrical tape, which I'm gonna be using both. So the method that I use with this is I touch both sides with the soldering paste. You touch them and touch them, and then same thing with this one, and then you go and you kind of mix it in, and then I go and I wrap them. And when I wrap them, they kind of stay put for a second. So once that happens, I get the wire that I'm gonna be soldering with and the iron. And what I do is I touch the wire, the two wires itself with the iron, and you start seeing the paste begin to like boil or bubble, however you wanna describe it. And then that's when you get the wire itself, and you kind of just touch it, and then you leave it there, and the copper wire starts taking this thing easily. And it's really easy, especially when you do it this method. So there's a lot of different methods, and you can do this where you can even just do each one individually and then heat it up and just touch them together. But again, this is how I like to do it. And yeah, each person has their own way of doing it. So I'm showing you mine. If you like mine, well, just do it or not. So let me just do this real quick. And just like that, in a few moments, I have both all soldered up. I have this thing just covered up with nothing but solder just to ensure that it does not come off. So I put a crap load. So now it's time to move this heat shrink over it. I'm gonna heat it up to shrink it, of course, and then I'm gonna wrap it with electrical tape individually. And once I do individually, then I'm gonna wrap it all together just to make it look kind of clean, and then of course rehook it up. And yeah, that's my little method. It's not that hard. The only thing about it is that the thicker the wire is, the much longer you're gonna have to leave it, because it takes much longer to heat up. And that was the situation with this, is that this wire was a little bit thicker than this one. So I tried to leave it there a lot longer just to kind of allow the metal to heat up. So it's not too bad. So this was kind of like the only issue, the only hard part. If I wanted to, I can even run it how it is. For those who do not want to run the Hobb switch, you do the same thing with the Hobb switch as I did with the volt regulator. You would kind of just go and snip it and spin it together, which activates the booster pump all the time. So the purpose of the Hobb switch, like I said earlier, is it kind of gives you a window, kind of like a window switch with nitrous. So if you kind of run these together, it's hooking up positive and negative, which runs it all the time. The window switch is no longer there. So if you just want to run it how it is, you can literally do what I just did and I would be done. But because I kind of want to save my MPG, I'm going to be hooking up the Hobb switch to not have this thing running all the time and only running when I really need it. So let me just heat shrink it, wrap it up, make it look all clean, and then I'll move on to the next step of running the wire all the way down to the engine bay. So now that I have both sides wrapped up really well, now that this thing's wrapped up galore, I'm going to be kind of overlapping right here and then wrapping it like this. So to make this thing look all nice and clean again and almost look kind of factory. So got to do that. One of the final steps to kind of finishing this up. Now I just got to figure out how in the world am I going to put this down. Gonna just have to figure out, maybe like right there, I don't know. And then probably grab some of the heat shrink, because it is kind of like rubberish, and kind of put it in between the metal and that to kind of act as like a sound deadening. So yeah, there goes that. And then the ground, that thing's plain and simple. Just got to find anything. I can even hook it up to like here, probably loosen this up and scratch the bottom to expose the metal, and then boom, just touch it. Plain and simple. So that's not too worried about the ground altogether. So let me just make this look clean again and then finish up the whole routing of this. Okay, so I decided before I set the final resting place for the booster pump and the ground, I'm gonna be running this wire right here. Right now I can adjust this. It gives me room. So if I need more length, I can just simply move it closer to the front of the car. So of course what I'm gonna need to do in order to run it, I'm gonna have to remove these panels, which if you've never moved these before, you just lift up. And it kind of sounds like it's gonna break, but don't worry, it's not. It's kind of painful the first couple times that you do it, but after you've done it enough, you know, you get used to it. So boom, popped out. Be careful with these little suckers right here, because if you have a nice pair of shorts, they will cut straight through them. I've ruined like 5 pairs of shorts. So you do not want to get caught on these little suckers, FYI. So after that's out, this little thing pops off too, but you got to snake it underneath the hood latch. So you just got to prop it out and it comes out pretty easily. Kind of goes like that. Let me take this piece off as well. And if you ever taken off any interior stuff, it hurts. Oh, I think I just broke it. No, I didn't. See? Oh my god, I hate these things so much. No, I am just gonna leave it like that before I actually break something. This should give me enough room to kind of snake the wire through. So let me just snake it through, which shouldn't be that bad. I'm just gonna put it up through this little girl and see, I can just pull it through. Let's fix that. Don't want that to kink up. Boom. And kind of run it on the downside, because little pins, see, like right here, they do slice down and you don't really want to cut through the wire. And you just continue to snake it all the way through. This part's already all clipped in, and what I'm gonna end up doing, again, like I said, there's a sound tube hole over there that I'm gonna snake it through. So what I'm gonna have to do is just, I'm gonna get some wire and feed it through the sound tube, because it's easier to get it through the engine bay. So I'm gonna sneak a metal wire through here and get it by the end, wrap it with some electrical tape and just pull it through, so I don't have to deal with all the hassle of trying to snake that wire itself through the whole firewall. So that's a little tip if you guys are planning on doing the same thing, or if you have to run any wire through the firewall. I can kind of put this panel back, but just by looking at this thing, it won't be able to make it all the way to my Hobb switch. And well, let me show you my plans for the Hobb switch. So like I said earlier, what a Hobb switch does is that it's kind of like a window switch, that it activates whatever you're controlling at a certain pressure, which I got this from NAPA, which is a low air pressure sensor switch, kind of tongue twister. But this is basically how she looks. This does not matter, kind of like with nitrous, it doesn't really matter on which side's positive and negative for the solenoid, so chill. So this again does not matter if it's a positive and negative. Whatever one you connect is going to end up working. So what this does is you hook it up to vacuum, which if you remember in my install video, I already have a connection right here. So what I'm gonna end up doing is removing this and replacing it with this one right here. So this, of course, is gonna go like that. This piece right here, replace that. And then, well, I'm gonna snake this through this whole little, like, I don't know, mess, I guess. I'm gonna snake it through, end up zip tying this thing somewhere like over here, unless I can find a longer hose of this. But snake it through, and then I'm gonna run the wire through there along here and hook it up. So it's pretty simple. So just by looking at that, I'm gonna have to extend the wire. So I just have to hook this up, and she should be ready to go once I do the ground. Oh, another note, you have to up your fuse over here. But yeah, again, this does not matter if it's a positive and negative. Both sides can work no matter what. The polarity does not matter. And this is set at 4 pounds of boost. It even sits here of 4 psi, which is how it comes. And if you want to even adjust it even more, all you do is remove this little nipple up here, and you can turn it down to even a lower psi or up a higher psi. Switches like this is most commonly found on like air compressors, like I have over here that you've seen in my previous video, which I use on an air gun. Once it hits a certain psi, you can either have it shut off or either turn on, and that's what I'm gonna be doing for this. So once it hits that right psi, it's gonna turn on. before I actually get to soldering over there and extending it, let me show you guys what I was talking about with the sound tube. Is that little hole right there. I already have the nipple removed, which if you don't have a sound tube delete system, which is mostly done by Blowfish if I recall, which is this ugly little thing that goes right here, which of course I deleted because it looked disgusting. So what I'm gonna be doing with this wire is feeding it through there, and like I said before, it's an easy shot. My hand can reach all the way down there, and it got kind of dark so you can't see, but I'm gonna be feeding the wire through that spot right there, which leads out by the gas pedal. And once that gets fed through, I can go on the inside and kind of pull it out more. And then like I said, once I lengthen up the wire, I can just wrap it with some electrical tape and just pull her through. 10 seconds later, the wire went through all smooth. So like I said, it should be in, oh, boom, right here. Like I said, again, right next to the gas pedal. So here goes the end, and what you're gonna wanna do is wrap it with a good amount of electrical tape so this thing doesn't slip. So you just wrap it, and then you just start pulling it through and it comes out. I know I said I'm gonna solder in here, but just by looking at the length, I might be able to get a good amount over there. So I'm gonna risk it to get the biscuit, and let's try it. So I have about like 2 inches fully wrapped with electrical tape. So now I should be able to go to the front end. Let me unwrap this and let me just start pulling her through. Let's not scratch my paint. Adrian will be mad. Boom. Oh, and it slipped. See, that's why you want a good amount, but luckily the wire already came through. So I'm gonna pull, and it's already pretty snug, which means that's about as tight as she's gonna get. So this is about as much room as I'm gonna get. So it's gonna go around the fuel line over here, and it's barely gonna reach in the background manifold. By the rough estimate of when I hooked it up over here, it looked like I only had enough room for the solenoid to kind of go over here. So I'm gonna have to lengthen it. I'm just gonna go ahead and lengthen like 6 inches maybe. So again, I'm gonna just zip tie this probably to like the booster pump, well, brake booster little area right here. Grab a little zip tie, do some little zip action and right here. Then just lengthen these wires so they can meet. Boom. Simple. And just like that, I have these all nice and lengthened now. More than enough, which I'll be able to, we're gonna want to tuck it underneath this little hose right here and kind of have it run across. I'm gonna be wrapping this with electric wire too. I haven't put any heat shrink right now, because all I'm gonna be doing at the end is opening up a little and then wrapping around the little bolt that goes right there. And then so I'm able to sneak the heat shrink on the other side. So I still got to put the heat shrink, heat it up, shrink it, and then wrap each one individually, just a couple inches out on both of them, and then do them all together to make them look black and clean, just so you don't really notice them at first glance. So for the most part, I'm basically almost wrapped up. I still have to do the ground over there, and then just kind of mount the booster pump itself, the whole unit, make sure it's nice and secure. Okay. So everything is buttoned up in the front like I showed you moments ago. So now, as far as like actually mounting the booster pump, I hooked up the ground to this plug right here. So what I did is loosen up the 10 mil bolt, and as you can kind of see, I scuffed up the bottom until I got it to bare metal. And that's what you want. This right here will not allow the ground to make a good connection because it is paint. The paint will restrict the ground from being rounded like correctly. So I scuffed it up to show the shininess, and then now I grounded it. So that's pretty simple. As far as the booster pump, so what I'm gonna do momentarily is I'm gonna zip tie it right here, another zip tie here, another zip tie here, just to get it to mount there. Because what I'm gonna end up doing is going to Angel's house, and I'm gonna end up making an own bracket that's gonna sit probably towards the middle over here and have this thing kind of elevated right here. And he does have pieces of metal where we could just like tack it on and build like our own bracket to allow the booster pump to be kind of elevated, which will allow airflow to kind of like cool it down while we're moving and not allow this thing to like overheat or maybe cause a fire. So that's what I'm gonna do momentarily, and kind of prop it up like on this little like seam right here, so the bottoms are exposed and allow air to properly like kind of circulate. Okay. That's gonna be it as far as for the install of the booster pump. I did put in the fuse up in like the fuse relay. If you guys want to know the exact number, just open up your owner's manual, which I have in there, and you just swap it out, plain and simple. You up it to a 30, which I think it's a 15 right now, well, was. So that's all you got to do. Everything is basically plugged up. That's gonna be the end of this video. Everything's kind of simple, And as you guys saw, I did put in the Hobb switch, which I spent the longest trying to find information on how to even put the Hobb switch. So if anyone's looking, this is the universal kit. So the Hobb switch and everything I'm doing will work for every single car. So that's gonna be the end of this video. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned for my next video.